Hello, hello. This is Willie Cartwright from Save to Sane. Thank you for being on my channel today. And I'm sorry, I have some difficulties I need to clear up really quick. But this is my first solo journey, and so I'm without my trusted friend who's been there to help me so long. Uh, Taisha Essick, but she's somewhere in the background, or she will be in the comments section. But again, this is Willie Cartwright. Welcome to my channel from Save to Sane. Just a few housekeeping things. Hey, Taisha, she's there. All right, thank you. Greetings, Taisha. Let me know, are you able to hear me clearly? And can you hear me? You can just type into the chat section. Let me know that if you're able to hear me. But welcome all. Um, I want to start off by reiterating, and I've said this before, what this channel is about, and what's going on with this channel, and why we started this channel. This channel is to help those individuals who have questions, who are on a journey, a personal journey of leaving their particular faith or religion, or just have questions about their faith or religion, and they want to question it. This is also a platform, a space. For those of you who are considering leaving Christianity or just have questions about Christianity or whatever your faith is, for you to come, hear the comments, dialogue with me and whoever I have as a guest, get some questions answered, give your input. But this is a safe place that we created, designed for people like you and me. When I started on this journey, I realized that there was a lot of people, uh, especially that looked like me, that was embarking on the same journey or had already embarked on the same journey. And some of those individuals were able to be vocal and outspoken about their journey and their decisions. But then there were others who were not, for whatever the reason be, whether it be the risk of losing a job or relationship or um, friendships or church or whatever it was. They were not able to speak out and be vocal. And so I feel like I act as that vocal voice for those individuals who cannot be as vocal. And when I'm on social media making comments or posting, funny memes related to Christianity, I oftentimes will get DM from people who are saying, "I'm in support of you or behind you. I'm just not able to be as open as you are. So go ahead, brother. Go ahead." So I'm here for that. I am here for that. Um, so today I wanted to just kind of, because this is my first truly solo venture on this podcast, I really wanted to kind of reiterate my journey, where I got started from, how I got to where I am now, because I think that's important. But I'm not going to go into all of the details, because I've discussed this a couple of times. And you can look at some of the other videos. But then I also wanted to talk about why, the real reasons why there are other people besides me who are on this journey, who are questioning their faith, who are questioning their belief system, who are questioning the things that they've been taught, growing up about their particular religion, in particular Christianity. I'm pretty well versed in Christianity, because I spent 40 years as a Christian, but I'm also somewhat versed in some of the other religions, and just the history of religion itself, where it got started, why it got started, and those things are extremely important. Once you understand the how and the why religion got started, then you can start to dissect the reasons, and then you can go into your own particular religion and trace the history of that religion. And then I think you'll be better informed to make a decision as to, is this the right path for me? The most important thing about this channel and what I'm doing on this channel is that I want to empower people to be critical thinkers. And I'm a firm believer that critical thinking begins with what we value most. And for a lot of us, one of the things that we value most, if not more so than any other thing, is our faith, is our religion. So I've always thought that if we could tackle that, if we can have people to think critically about their faith and their religion, then I think that we can get people to think critically about every other aspect of their life. Religion is the one place where people tend not to think critically about. You are basically, for most of us, especially early on, you are basically, from a religious standpoint, a product of geography, where you live, or what people around you or what your relatives practice. It's not until we get much older that we're able to make those decisions. And many of us still remain in a particular religion because of those two reasons. So again, we want to embark on critical thought, and we want to begin with, in my opinion, the thing that we are least critical thinking about, and that's our faith and that's our religion. I'm not here to insult anyone's religion or insult anyone's intelligence, but those of you who follow me understand that I am very direct. I don't really hold back on many things, and I don't mind having a dialogue or disagreement. As a matter of fact, I welcome a dialogue. For those of you who out there who disagree with the things I say, or have another opinion, or have another angle, then absolutely bring it on. Let's have this discussion, because this is just not about me speaking. It's about us dialoguing with one another and understanding one another. I'm not saying that you're wrong for practicing what you practice or believe what you believe. I may believe differently, and I have my reasons for that, and we'll talk about that as we go along. But what I am saying is that hopefully those of us who've chosen a particular faith to follow, that we've done so because we have spent the time researching, understanding, using our reason and our logic, and being critical in our thought about what it is that we practice and why we practice that. And so, with all that being said, we will get started kind of on my journey. As we go through this, anybody that's in the comment section, you leave questions. We will get to the questions. I'll answer the questions immediately. We can get back to what we're doing, especially if it's related to what I'm saying at that particular point. So thank you guys for everybody who's on here, everybody who will join, and everybody who will watch this later on the channel. So absolutely, Taisha, thank you. You said exercising our right to choose. Absolutely. So that's a great segue into why I'm on this journey. I was raised in the Bible Belt, Birmingham, Alabama, and in those days, the 70s and 80s, everybody went to church. Everybody was religious. Everybody was Christian or Catholic or whatever. But I don't feel like that we had a choice. I know I didn't have a choice, so I'll speak for me. I didn't have a choice. It was, from birth. It was all I remember was that we were going to church, and we were Baptists or non-denominational or Pentecostals or whatever. But we believed in God regardless. There was no ifs, ands, and buts about that, and it was just it was expected, and it was what you did, even without thinking about it. So that was part of the journey. So I grew up traditional, like most people in the South, especially Black people, in church all the time. When I say all the time, Sunday morning before Sunday school started, 8:30, 9 o'clock, we were one of the first people, if not the first people there. My mother, my sister, and myself, as young kids, we were there. Went 11 o'clock service. We went to Sunday school, and then went to 11 o'clock service, and then we got a break, and we lived probably 20 minutes from the church. So my mother had some really good friends that lived close to the church, and she was one of the lady, one of the friends. She was an older lady and very sweet lady, Miss Brown, or Sister Brown, as we called her. She would invite us over to her house to eat dinner in between church services, and so we did this almost on a regular basis. We would go, and she would have this good old Southern food cooked for us, and we would go in, and that was my only opportunity that I got on Sundays to watch a little football, because her husband, like most men, wasn't too keen on going to church and being in church all day. So he would be at the house watching football. So I would go in and get some food and try to peep around the corner and look at the television channel, watch football as much as I could. We were there for hour and a half, whatever, before the evening services started. So we would do that. So we would go to evening service, and the evening service would start supposedly at 3. But you know how churches are. It wouldn't get started till 4:30, and then we would be out of there at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and we would go home. And that was, we would do sometimes on Saturdays if there was a special event or a meeting or practice, if you were in the choir or in the worship board or whatever. Wednesday night Bible study, we did all of that. Revival is one of the things that I totally revered. We would go, and so those of you who don't understand what revival is just service during the summer, and it's in the evening times, and it's hot in Birmingham, Alabama. It's hot, but it's during the summer, and I'm a kid. So we would go to, and revival usually lasted a week. And so not only did we go to our revival at the church that we attended during the summer, 1 week out of the summer during the evening times, my mother would drag us to other church revivals. And so we would go to those revivals too. So here I am, a kid out of school for summer and spending my summer evenings in a church. And then so if that wasn't bad enough, we would occasionally go to these outdoor tent summer revival services. Those services tended to be more dogmatic, more Pentecostal type. They lasted a lot longer, and it was a lot hotter because we were actually outside. That's when I got my first experience of having oil put on my forehead to bless me or whatever. And my sister and I hated that. We just despised that, but we had no choice. Back then, you didn't voice your opinion. You didn't have an opinion. And my mother was always on 10 about respect and being disrespectful. So even if she thought that we thought something, we were in trouble. So we obviously we didn't say anything. We went along with it. It's funny because other adults thought that my sister and I was just the most mannerable kids ever to exist. And in reality, we were terrified of my mother because she was such a disciplinarian, and she believed in the whole spare the rod, spoil the child. So we constantly got beat, and I think a lot of that stemmed from her interpretation of biblical scripture. So we did that. I did that up until I got to college, and I got in college, and I tell the story a lot. I got to college, and I started meeting guys from other parts of the country, and I went to school in Alabama, Alabama A&M University, the greatest institution in the world. I was in school there, but I had an opportunity to meet a lot of brothers, a lot of people from other parts of the country. Parents will send their kids down south to go to a HBCU. In some cases, a lot of these guys was coming down to school so they get out of trouble. The guys from places like New York and Philly and Detroit. A lot of times you would talk to them. It was like, man, I've been in so much trouble. My mom just sent me down south to go to school. Or they would have grandparents that still live down south, and so they would come down here and go to school down south and go to school and be closer to their grandparents or aunts or whatever. So yeah, but I started to talk to a lot of these guys, and a lot of these guys practiced at the time was practicing religions that I had never heard of. 5%ers and Hebrew Israelites and Muslim, Nation of Islam, and I had obviously I had heard of Nation of Islam and briefly, but I wasn't that versed in Nation of Islam or Islam for that matter. So it started interesting me, and it was very interesting to me. I started listening to some of the things they were saying, and I actually took a liking to Islam because I thought it was, especially Nation of Islam, but Islam, and it was, the black man's religion is what we should be practicing. Is taught self-respect and self-love and discipline and how you treat your women and all of that. So I kind of feel for that. At one point, I thought about converting from, deconverting from Christianity and going into and becoming Muslim, but some of the rituals and some of the practices I just couldn't get my hands around, and so that kind of went by the wayside. However, I still was interested in it as a practice, and interested in learning about it. I ended up having friends who were Islam, a Muslim, and we had many discussions about it. But all of that did during that 4 or 5 years in school was pique my interest about religion and the effect that religion has on all of us, and why we are what we are and why we practice what we practice. Fast forward, I spent the next 20, 30 years, 20 years or so or whatever, being pretty much Christian, going to church not every Sunday, but pretty regularly. And then there was times that I didn't go as regular. right? But but I still was attending, and no issues. And then I met my wife in 2005, and at the time my wife was a Christian, devout Christian. She had only been a Christian for like 10 years. And prior to that, growing up, she had spent about 20 years of her life uh, as a Muslim. Started off Nation of Islam, and then real Muslim or whatever. And so that was really unique. And I had never dated a Muslim woman before, a woman who had been Muslim. Although she was Christian at the time, so she still had a lot of the practices and all that kind of things with it. But she was the very devout Christian. And so that we got married, both of us, were Christians, and that was fine. We attended different churches, and then we started kind of floating around in different churches because for whatever reason, it's just the church that we were attending at whatever time just didn't sit right with us. And so we tried this church and we tried that church, and it's funny because I remember we had so many people who told us, "You got to try my church. My church is different. My pastor's different. He's really preaching the word." And you. So I would tell you in a 10, 15-year period, I went to many, many, many churches, and I was part of several denominations. Um, and at the end of the day, it all really felt the same to me. Some of it, they were more docile than others. Some were more dramatic. The Pentecostal type churches. Um, but at the end of the day, it really kind of felt the same to me. And so, unbeknown to myself, my wife was starting to feel the same. And then one day we kind of, we were hiking it because we like to be outdoors, and we hike a lot in nature. And we were hiking here in Georgia Stone Mountain one Saturday, and we just kind of turned to each other and said, "You know what, this religion thing is not working for us." And so we made a pact at that time that we would leave Christianity, no longer call ourselves Christians, uh, and just kind of break away and start a journey and just start seeking. Um, my wife's journey led her to become Buddhist, a Buddhist. Basically, she's been practicing Buddhism for 3 or 4 years now. And so when we left, it was 2015 when we made this decision. Um, I didn't tell my mother. Now, my mother is at the time was a devout Christian. As a matter of fact, she was a minister at this particular time. She had become a minister later in her life. So she was extremely devout. I mean, it was Jesus, Jesus, God, God, God. And so I would call her. She still lived in Birmingham, and she was always sick, but she still lived in Birmingham. So I would go back and forth. But I called her twice a week. I always called on a Monday. I always called on a Friday. Uh, Greetings to you, Truth Seeker. Thank you so much for joining. Sounds just like your story. I'm absolutely. So anyway, my mother, I would call her on Mondays, and every Monday she would ask me how was church. And so at this point, I hadn't told her that I was no longer attending church and I was no longer a Christian. So I would just kind of make up something. I know you're not supposed to lie to your mother, but we all grown. So I would try to spare her feelings, and so I would say, we overslept, or we didn't wake up in time, or whatever it was. I would make up something. And so this went on for about a year, and I hadn't told her. And now just some background. My mother and I, at the time, we were extremely close. She was my biggest supporter. She's the very reason that I'm everything who I am. She was very strict. She was a disciplinarian. She beat the living tar out of us every time we even began to mess up. But she's the one responsible for where I am. I was the first person in my family to go to college in the whole 9 yards. So she did the best she could with what she had. So we were extremely close. So a year passed, and then one day, without thinking, I called her on a Monday, and she started the whole "How was church?" And I just kind of, without thinking, said to her, "Mom, I don't go to church anymore. I don't believe the way you believe anymore." And my wife was in the car, and she was on speakerphone, and my mother got really quiet, which is highly unusual for her. I mean, I'm a chip off the block. Me and my mother were very similar, so she talked a lot, especially about God and religion. But she was quiet, and I went on for about 30 minutes trying to explain to her why I felt the way I felt. And at the end, I said to her, I said, "Listen, this is not a discussion that we can have right now." I said, it was close to the holidays. I said, "So I'll be home for the holidays, and we can have this discussion during the holidays." And this was probably 2016. We never had a discussion. I got a call from my sister a couple of weeks later asking me, boy, what did you say to mom? I said, what are you talking about? The mom said that you're gonna burn in hell. You atheist. You a demon. 666. You the Antichrist. I mean, all these bad things. And my mother had never, ever. I mean, my mother basically revered me. I mean, she. I mean, I was it. And my sister tell you, I was a favorite child. She just revered me. But so this was, although it was shocking. And I know some of you guys have gone through this when you've come out and said that I no longer believe. It was shocking to a point, but I wasn't that surprised at her reaction. And then the final thing she said, because at the time when my wife and I owned the business, we still do, but part of owning the business, we were supplementing her income, which we had been doing forever, and I had been doing for years, even before I met my wife. And so what she said to my sister was that, well, their business will fail. And when their business failed, they would come running back to Jesus, and I'll be waiting right there, with a towel for them to cry into. So I tell that story because the importance of that is how brainwashed we can be with religion, to the point where we damn near wish bad things to happen to our own flesh and blood. I mean, my mother was willing for us to be destitute if it meant that we still believed. And there are a lot of people out there like that, but I think that was the thing that was probably the most shocking, and that was the thing that kind of, my wife was like, that's crazy. I cannot believe that she would do that. And so we didn't have a discussion. 2017 rolled around, and July 2017, my mother passed away. So we never had that. We never had that full discussion. And if she was to see me now, she as people say, she's rolling over in her grave, and she is. Now I kind of make jokes because I had her cremated when she died, and my sister is in possession of the ashes. And I went home this past Sunday for my niece's gender reveal. And my sister had the ashes sitting in a nice, very nice container, very nice. And I kind of make jokes about her, that she's gonna come and get me because I'm doing this, because she was extremely devout. You could not say anything bad about Jesus or God in her house. So yeah, so that's kind of where we are. And so now, if you ask me, when am I? I don't believe in any deity. The Abrahamic deities included. I don't believe in any deities that we know of. I do leave open the possibilities that there is something beyond us. There is something beyond man. I don't know what it is. I don't have a definition for it. And frankly, I really don't care. And that sounds kind of flippant, but the reason why I said it is because I don't believe that that whatever it is has an impact on our life. I feel like that we are, responsible for the things that happen to us. We are accountable for the things that happen to us, and then everything else is just life. And so that's how I operate my life. And I think as I started my journey and really got deep into my studies, and I discovered that the biblical heaven and hell didn't exist. That was one of the most freeing things ever, because for many believers, it's that fear of going to hell that makes them do what they do, and forbids them from asking questions or seeking answers. So that was very empowering. And so for those of you out there who's listening to this, do yourself a big favor. Research the history of the biblical heaven and hell and where it came from, the origins of it, because that would really help you. Let me see some of these comments we got here. Truth Seeker, let's see. I saw Papa. Let me see. Let me go back up. Thank you, Taisha, for taking care of the chat room for me. Papa Soul Searcher, good evening. Good to see you guys. Good to see you. Truth Seeker, good to see you. I'm glad you guys joined. What's this? Eva Boutique Emporium. I remember telling my dad that I left the church, and he told me that everything that I do after would fall because I didn't go to church anymore. Oh man, I absolutely. And I just shared the story with my mom, basically saying the same thing. But here's a question that I will say to people who say that, because anytime you leave and you have people that are close to you that are still devout, they will oftentimes say something like this. And I'm gonna tell you, I say all the time. I say, you know what, the people that I know that are struggling the most, whether it be financially, whether it be relationship wise, whether it be health wise, are all believers. So I don't get this, everything else you touch is gonna fail. from what I've seen with with a lot of believers, it can't get much worse if they decided to not believe anymore. And my mother and I would have these discussions even when I was a little young. When I got old enough to where I could have an opinion, I was basically out of the house. I would say to her oftentimes, I say, well, why are you paying tithes? Your lights are. You always worry about your light. I mean, we grew up with our lights being off, sometime being on, the gas not being on. I mean, we spent a whole year without heat in our house. But every piece of change that my mom got, a portion of that, regardless, went to the church. And after a while, I just couldn't understand that, even to the point where when my sister and I were supplementing her income, and we did this for many years, I'm talking a couple of decades, she would still take that money and give part of it to the church. And I told her one day, I said, hey, Mom, God don't need your money. God know you need to pay the light bills and the power bill. And so I just don't get this giving your last. And my mother spent her entire life in poverty. I'm talking about strict poverty. I'm talking about, she told me one day, she said, I've never made more than, told me one day, she said, I never made more than $10,000 a year. And I can testify, at least when I was younger, because when I went to college and did my financial aid, and you have to get your parents' taxes, it was a lot less than $10,000 for those years. So yeah, so I don't get this whole, a lot of Christians, especially the ones I grew up with, I didn't see many Christians doing well. So how much worse can it be? Let's see. True Seeker, if everything would fail, if anything would fail after you left the church, what kind of loving God would do that? That is absolutely, absolutely, absolutely right. I agree with you totally. I asked that question as well. Another thing I asked in kind of relationship to that is uh, prayer. When you pray to this God, first of all, this is supposed to be an all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving God. So why do I have to pray to God and pray and pray and pray and then do intercessory prayer? Go get a group of other people to pray with me in order for him being God to answer my prayer. That becomes begging. And so I use the analogy. I use this analogy all the time. Those of you who have kids, and I've said this to people with kids who are devout, I said, if you had a child, and let's say you walked into your child's room and a stranger was choking your child, would your child have to ask you to help him? Would your child have to ask you to get this stranger off of their back? No. You know why? Because you are a loving parent and your love is unconditional. Unlike your God, your love is unconditional. So I asked that question. I said, so why is it that your God know that you need certain things? I'm not talking about riches, millions, but I'm talking about basic. In my case, growing up, I'm talking about basic necessities, power, life, food, whatever. But yet you still have to pray and beg and get 10, 15, 13 other people, as you see on Facebook, people, everybody pray, everybody pray. First of all, you shouldn't have to pray. This God, your Father, your all-loving Father who supposedly loves you more than you love yourself, see what's going on in your life. Why is it you still have to beg this God to do anything? And then half the time, 3/4 of the time, he don't answer anyway. And then the time that you feel like your prayers have been answered, it's you can always trace it to a natural cause. So I mean, and they've done studies. The Templeton Foundation, which is a religious organization, they did a study on prayer, and they came away with the results were that there is no discernible differences in prayer and things happening. So basically, they came to the conclusion that prayer does not work. And this is a religious organization called the Templeton Foundation. You can do your research. You can look it up. It is a famous study on prayer. I mean, there have been many, but this is probably the most famous because this organization is very well known, very well funded, and very right-leaning, conservative-leaning leaning organization. So yeah, some more comments. Scare tactics at its finest, absolutely true seeker. Christine, greetings. Thank you. Thank you. Funny thing is that, and this is from Eva Boutique. Am I saying it? Eva Boutique Emporium. Funny thing is that my mom has left religion and is practicing Hebrew. Wow. What they say from the what is the frying pan from the pot to the frying pan or whatever, however that saying goes. I have a friend, a really close friend from high school, who I didn't know until a few years ago that he was a practicing Hebrew Israelite. When we graduated, he went to Seattle, and then he came back home to Alabama after about 20 years or so. And I went home a few years ago and hung out with him, and we got into discussion about religion. And he revealed that he was a Hebrew Israelite. And the first thing he told me, he said, the stuff that you see on the corners, you see the guys on the corners yelling and screaming and won't let a person get a word edgewise in. He said, that's not the way it's supposed to be done. So I'll give him a little bit on that. But he said, that's not the way it's really supposed to be done. That's not how they're supposed to do it. That's, people just being fanatical. And you have fanatics in every sect or whatever religion. But yeah, so I do know a couple of Hebrew Israelites. So interesting, very interesting. They have a lot of them have an extreme viewpoint of stuff, and so he and I discussed it. So yeah, that's one of those things that we tend to turn to. So I said, that's my mom. She left religion after I did. Oh, really? Taisha, good deal. My mom would have, my mama sent me to hell before she would have left religion. Christina, the insanity is real. The longer you stay, the worse the insanity becomes. And then she said, I am all prayed out. I've tried everything when I was a believer, and in the process of things, I tried, haggling with God. I tried making bets. I made promises. If you do this, I won't do this anymore. We all kind of go through that as believers, especially when things get difficult. And I came to the conclusion a long time ago that this whole prayer thing is, it doesn't work. It is a placebo for most people. You believe it works. So, and so what really happens with prayer is confirmation bias. So what happens is that you already believe that prayer works, right? So you go around looking for evidence that your prayers are answered. So anytime there's a situation that you pray about and you get a favorable result, to you, that becomes evidence that prayer works. Here's the problem, however. You do this 10 times and you get a favorable result 1, 2, maybe 3 times. You forget the other 7 times when you didn't get the favorable results. And so here's what happened when I questioned a believer about that. I said, well, you prayed about this and that didn't happen, and you prayed about this and that didn't happen. So then it becomes either the person saying to themselves, telling themselves that either they didn't pray hard enough, or God has something better for them. I know, I'm sure many of you have heard that God has something better for them. It wasn't the right time. Or he's gonna answer that prayer later in time, on his own time. So it's always some excuse. So that's one of the things. And those of you, I'm generation whatever. What am I? Generation X, after baby boomers and before millennials. I think that's X. So those of us who are on Facebook in my generation, you see this all the time. You see, because we're in the age bracket where, a lot of people in our peer group, a lot of people are becoming sick, ill. They're dealing with sick parents, and then they're raising kids, young kids, and kids are doing what they do. When I say kids, not just adolescents or pre-adolescents, but young adults as well. So they do what they do. So there's a lot of prayer on my timeline from believers in my age group. And it's just amazing how everything it's pray for this person, pray for that person, pray for this person to get healed. And, unfortunately, a month later, this person passes away and there's nothing else said. But you let that person, get healed miraculously, or by the science and doctors and their own bodies healing and what's natural to us, and God gets all the glory. So I tell you all the time, if you're going to give God the glory for, stuff that he didn't do, but a favorable result, if you're going to give God the glory, then should you not give God the blame when that result is not favorable? So if I got an aunt or uncle that's in the hospital and they got cancer and they make it through cancer, if I'm going to give God the glory, well, if that same uncle or aunt passes away from cancer, should I not give God the blame? But as they said, we're not ready for that conversation. And so, we tend to shy away from that. Christine, Hebrew Israelites are usually the next step after leaving Christianity, as if the myth of Jesus being black will make a difference. Black, white, blue, or green, it doesn't matter. He never existed. I've said that too. I've made that point, even for the people who will argue with us that Christianity was in Africa before the transatlantic slave trade, and I've done videos on that as well. I've told people, that first of all, you don't understand how large Africa is. Africa is a continent. It is 54 countries. It is the in land mass, I think the second largest continent. Africa is huge. If you fly in a plane from say the North Africa down to Cape Town or South Africa, you are talking, I don't know, at probably 9-10 hours flight. I mean, Africa is huge. And so to say that is at best disingenuous. What the reality of it is that Christianity was practiced in only two North African countries prior to the Atlantic slave trade. And so those of us who here in this country, our ancestors are mostly from West Africa and Central Africa. And Christianity was not introduced to West Africa and Central Africa until the 1500s, which was right around the time of the slave trade, right? So when we say that our ancestors were beat into believing in Christianity, then that's a fact. We had a multitude of other spiritual practices on the continent, and including West Africa and those countries in West Africa, and none of those practices were Christianity, right? And so making him black or making Christianity in Africa first doesn't make it right, doesn't make it factual, doesn't make it historical. And that's what I tell people all the time. So because you think, well, Jesus was black, okay, and what? That still doesn't make it real. Doesn't make him real. The story's not real. So we do that. So absolutely. Truth seeker, I have searched everywhere seeking the truth, including what I call the lie of attraction. After coming full circle, they are all false. Yeah, once you start doing your research and once you clearly understand religion from a historical standpoint, how we, think about this. So actually what religion and the belief in a deity or God is, I mean, God is what we call the deity now, but it was many other names prior to that, is really an attempt to answer questions that human beings could answer. Those of you who remember Greek mythology when you were growing up and you went to school and they taught these things, we understood that Zeus and Apollo and all these gods were actually gods of thunder, lightning, the water, whatever it was. But it served as an answer to why do we have lightning? Well, as humanity back then, we didn't know. So we had to create something because human beings have a problem with not knowing. We don't want to say we don't know. So what we did was we created a God as the answer. So we created the God of thunder, we created the God of lightning, we created the God of water, earthquakes, whatever we didn't have an answer to, we created a God for it. And as we got answers to those, as we got scientific answers to those questions, those gods went to the wayside. So we no longer, in most cases, we no longer worship Apollo or Zeus, or Thor or those gods. And so what we have left is the Abrahamic God and some other gods in different religions, but they still serve the same purpose. They answer the question as to, I don't know, what is it? And you can test that because when you get into a discussion with a believer and you guys start talking about creation and evolution, and you ask them to prove that the Abrahamic God is real, the first thing they go to is, well, how did we get here? And those of us who believe in evolution, and I always say this, I said scientists has proven that the Big Bang, evolution, and natural selection is the most plausible answer to our existence. Do we know that for sure? We don't know a lot of things we don't know for sure. So when you add that, then they say, well, if we don't know that for sure, then the answer is God. But here's the problem with that. Even if I'm wrong, even if the scientists that push evolution and natural selection and all of that, even if they're wrong, them being wrong about that theory that theory or whatever, it's not proof that your God is real. It doesn't prove anything. So you can't prove that your God is real by destroying other theories. So I asked them, well, prove to me that your God is real, that the creation story of the Bible is the answer as to how we got here. Because scientists, and through science, through scientific studies and the process, they've proven that the creation story is impossible, that it never happened. And so if you destroy the creation story, and there are believers now who have kind of pulled back from the creation story being real, or they've tried to figure out a way um, to entangle the two. They say, well, I believe in evolution, but it was creation through evolution, which don't make any sense to me. But it's their attempt, because they know how asinine they sound when they push the theory of creation. God created the earth in 6 days and blah, 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 blah. Even if you read the creation story in the Bible, there are multiple variations of the creation story right there in the Bible. There are multiple variations of that story. So even if you're able to prove that the Big Bang, evolution, natural selection is not real, which they can't because it's scientifically proven. It is a scientifically accepted theory that this is factual. And that's why it's taught in most universities and schools that are not religious based. But let's say they were able to prove that. That still would not prove that your God is real, that your God exists. So yes, so what God? We've had over 1,000 gods. Humanity has created over 1,000 gods. So even if you say, yeah, the earth everything was created by God, which God? And what makes you think that your God is right? So we have a long way to go. That doesn't hold water, because you have attempted to disprove another theory, or you don't believe in another theory. You still haven't proved that your God exists, or that Jesus existed. Jesus in the divine exists. So yeah. So that is I love having that discussion with believers, because they don't have a comeback for it. When you get into a logical and a reason-based discussion with most believers, they don't have a comeback for it. I mean, they begin to make up stuff, all kinds of stuff. So yeah. Let's see. Any more comments? What other comments do we have? Any questions? Anybody on the line want to that disagree with me and have reasons why? We're very open to discussing that as well. And so one of the other things that I wanted to discuss today was I saw a study not too long ago, and I kind of knew this because this was a trend that had been going on for a while. For the first time, less than 50% of the people in this country are going to church. I think that is awesome. I give them a hand clap for that. less than. Now, that doesn't mean that people are no longer. I mean, a lot of these people still hold on to their belief in God and Jesus, but they've stopped going to church. I think we're down to like 49% of the country or something that's going to church. But that is huge. And there was a point not too long ago where 75-80% of the people in this country went to church. So to have it for the first time below 50% is absolutely awesome. And so here's what happens, though. So that's the first step in people questioning their faith. That's the first step. Again, it doesn't mean that they don't believe anymore, because most people I talk to, they don't go to church. They still believe in God. A lot of them are still Christians. They still believe in God and Jesus and whatever faith they are. They still believe in that. They're just tired of the circus that they get in the church. I used to call it just showtime, because I went to a church where the same lady got up and ran around the church at exactly 11:35 every Sunday. I mean, it's just a one big show, and a bunch of all the other stuff that goes on in church. However, that's the first step, because what happens is that now if you are able to think critically, you said to yourself, if all of these things going on in the church that I just cannot get with, I don't understand, or in my opinion are wrong, and this is a person talking, maybe there is something to the whole foundation of why I'm going to church, or why I believe in this practice. And so people begin to, that's how you start doing research. That's how you start asking questions. That's how you start second guessing. And then that leads you on a journey. Now, wherever that journey takes you is fine. I mean, just don't be afraid to embark on the journey. And so I think that's great. And another stat that's come out recently, I think it's been a few years now. I think those under the age of 40, I think it's about 40, we're at about a 30% clip of people who consider themselves nuns, and that's NONES. And I talk about that in my book. And I have to push my book. Um, but yeah, nuns are those individuals who are not affiliated with any religion whatsoever. They might be agnostic, they might be atheists, they might be just, I believe in the moon, I believe in something out there in space, or I believe in nature, or whatever it is. But 30% is really high for a country who at one point we had probably 85% of the people believe in some type of God. And so these are nuns. And I think as they get as the younger the person is, the less likely they are to believe in anything. So in a couple of generations, I would not be surprised at all that we are eclipsing 50% of non-believers, or people who just like, or either just, whatever about religion. And they may or may not, doesn't make a big difference, whatever it is. And I think a lot of those people still believe in something outside of themselves, but it won't be the traditional God that we know of now, or traditional deity that exists in some other religions. So I think that's awesome. And I think that it would get us to being critical thinkers, and push that. So yeah, I am good with that. Let's see. I think this is Taisha. I think the Rona 19 had something to do with it. Yeah, you know what? I think so too. I obviously I think the whole church thing, Rona had something to do with it as well. Absolutely. People couldn't go to church. They realized, okay, do I really need church? Even those who decided to just watch it on television, and then those who decided, I don't want to watch it today, let me do something else. And then they got to the point where they realized that they could exist without this all being, I mean, this presence of this so-called all-knowing God. They realized that they can do other things on Sunday, and they wouldn't have an impact on their life one way or the other, and so I think that's what's happening. And as far as the nuns, I think, while we have so many younger people who are not affiliated with any religion, it's because they've watched their parents and grandparents, and they watched their parents and grandparents get up and go to church every day, and every Sunday, every Saturday, every Wednesday, every Thursday, whatever it is, and pray to this God, and have pictures and photos of God and Jesus all over the house, and they realize that their life is still trash for the most part. I mean, they're still suffering, they're still sick, they're still poor, they're still mentally unhealthy, they still have horrible relationships, and so they're saying, so, and I understand this, and it's natural for relationships to be transactional, right? So if you're going to devote this much time, this much resources, this much money and energy to believing in a deity, and only thing that you get out of this is heaven after you die, well, these young people are smart enough to say that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I want more than that. And if I can't get that, then there's no reason for me to continue this relationship with this deity. And it makes a whole lot of sense. It's natural. It is natural. So I think that's what's happening with a lot of them. And they're just going about their lives, and they're living their lives the way they want to live lives. Plus, with all of the hypocrisy that you see in the church. And then once you're able to really read the Bible and notice all the hypocrisy, as opposed to when we was growing up, the pastor or the Sunday school teacher would cherry pick the best parts of the Bible out and then talk to us about it. And a lot of us never really read the Bible. And I'm not saying that as a subjective statement or an opinion. I'm saying that as a factual, objective statement. I was reading a book a while back, and in the book it talked about there are two religious groups that know the least about the Bible or their particular scriptures. Number two on that list are Hispanic Catholics. So they don't know hardly anything about their religion. But number one on that list, the group that know the least amount about their Bible and their religion, is African American Christians. Number one, read about the least, know the least about their religion. So that's, and a lot of that is, we were always taught to believe the pastor. I mean, the pastor in our community is like a mini God, regardless of all the things that he or she may be involved in, that's shady, that's hypocritical, that goes against the tenets of the Bible. We still revere the pastor and deacons in our church, in our community. We still do it, you know. I know I did, and I know my generation did, and people after that, and we still do. And these people take advantage of those situations. I mean, I remember coming to Atlanta, and I've been here 26 years, right? And never been a fan, and I don't care about calling names. I've never been a fan of Creflo Dollar or Eddie Long when he was alive. But I remember going to the barbershop. That's before I lost all my hair. and we would have discussions. And if religion came up, and I'll make a statement, I don't care for Creflo or Eddie Long. If it was somebody in that barbershop that was a member of his church, these people were willing to fight you if you said something negative about their pastor. I'm not talking about, I'm talking about literally fight you. Like a couple times I had to be like, oh man, calm down, bro. It ain't that serious. I'm just telling you, I'm not feeling your pastor, right? I issues. But yeah, and so we revere those individuals in our church. And so it's amazing. So that's another thing that we have to get away from, because a lot of those pastors use uh, our reverence for them for their own personal benefit, and we see this all the time. These churches are some of these mega churches are in communities where the average income the average household income in these communities are less than $20,000 a year, but they have palatial churches. I mean, and they live a extravagant life. And yet the people of the church, the parishioners of the church, are suffering to pay their bills every day and struggling. And you go, and I'm not telling you something that I read or that I heard. I'm telling you something that I lived and that I experienced and that I went through. And so I have a specific story about that when I was living in Gwinnett and attending a large church in Gwinnett. About that, but I'm telling you from experiences that I've experienced and that I know other people have. So it's just not, well, that was just your experience. No, it's been plenty of people experience, but it's always good to tell from firsthand knowledge. And so that's what I'm talking about with that. As a truth seeker, would you believe that about 50% of people that attend church don't really believe the Bible, but go out of tradition? We are not alone. A lot of churchgoers really don't believe. Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. And so this is becoming a movement. And when I say this is becoming a movement, the whole, I don't, it's called, I've seen people calling it deconstructing, but the people, I usually see white people calling it deconstructions. I don't know if that's something that black people refer to. We probably call it coming out. But anyway, yeah, so I see that. And so when we have these discussions in this movement, one of the things that us non-believers, one of the challenges is that people will ask, well, if we stop going to church, what will replace the church? And not the sense, and not in the sense of praying to a deity or having a God, but there are social elements of the church that people need and that people miss. And so when you say that, a lot of people don't believe, but they still go to church. A lot of it is out of friendships, the social element. I mean, a lot of these churches have single ministries, and I've heard everything about those. But there are, so that there is a need, a social need, a communal need that the church fulfills. And there are ways to get around it. I mean, there are organizations out there. There are different groups that you can become involved in for whatever specified reasons that you needed the church for. But it's still nothing like Sunday morning, knowing that pretty much everybody in the neighborhood is going to be in the same place for 3 hours. Whether you go through Sunday school and church, and after church, and y'all mingle and y'all talking. Y'all kids see each other if they're not in school. Outside of school, church is the next place where the kids in the neighborhood get together and see each other and spend a lot of time with each other. So that's a whole nother, that's a part of it as well. So yeah, but no, I absolutely believe that there's a lot of us that are just going to church. I mean, I know people who are just going. As a matter of fact, I got a quick story. I got a buddy, and we've been friends since high school. So that's been a long time, long time. And so I oftentimes will post stuff on Facebook that are what they would consider anti-religious. He's one of the first people that would come on and kind of, not really get angry, but kind of say something sly about my comments. And then he would tag my sister. So my sister and I, we kind of have this agreement. My sister is still devout, still a believer. And so we kind of have this agreement. She said that she won't make any comments. I mean, she still says little sly stuff like, oh, here we go, the little rolling eyes. But we don't go, because we have such a close relationship. We don't go at each other publicly on social media. We just don't. And she would defend me to the death if somebody came on and said something negative about it. Even if she doesn't believe what I'm saying, she would defend me to the death. And I'll do the same for her. So we are extremely close. But anyway, so he'll tag her and they'll kind of laugh and snigger about it, whatever. And this has been going on for a while. And about a month ago, he sends me a DMs me. He says, listen, he said, I got a story, but I've been working for this church for 17 years in their finance department. And the things that I've learned and the things that I've seen, he said, when I get my own business started, I'm leaving the church and I got a story. And I was like, LOL, but ain't you the same guy that is sometimes critical of the memes that I post about the church? He kind of laughed, yeah, but and so we get a lot of, and so he's not the only one, but I've had others who have said something publicly because they wanted to kind of save face, but then came back in a private conversation or saw me on the street and said, man, I'm with you 100%. I just can't. This is what I do. So I'm not offended about it. I kind of laugh at it because I know that the people are out there. But having these podcasts and doing what I'm doing now and the comments that you guys are sending, and I know there are other people out there. This enables me to continue to do what it is that I'm doing, and we're working on some much larger stuff. This is who I am. This is who I'm gonna be until I take my last breath. So we're gonna be doing something in this arena to free people from the bondage of religion, and in particular Christianity, but religion as a whole, the bondage of belief in an external being to save you, because that's not going to happen. That doesn't exist. No one is coming to save you. And so we're going to continue to work with all of this until we can free as many people, especially as many of our people, from the mental slavery and the mental shackles of believing in a non-existing deity. And so as long as I have breath, this is what we made the commitment that this is what we're going to do. So Christine said, going to church is no different than going to the club. It's only a social gathering. For a lot of people, it is. And I think the bigger the church, well, I ain't going to say that because the small church is the same way. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. I know that these large, and I've been in both small churches. When I say small, I'm talking less than 50 people. And then I've been in large churches. I mean, I'm talking 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. So, and the social element is there in both. So you are absolutely right. I had a friend of mine who is devout. She hit me on Facebook the other day and told me that she no longer goes to church. And I said, why? Because I know how devout she was, and she lives in another state. But she said, because, and this is her words, she said, because I'm single and the guys there treat me like pork chop. And I said, I got to hear more, elaborate. And so she I kind of knew what she was saying, but she kind of told me that, it's like going to the club. She's a single woman. She's it's like, so she used the analogy of, I think she was an army brat, and so she moved around a lot. And so she said each time she went to a new school, she was the new student there, and all the guys would just flock to her because she was new meat at the school. And then the girls would be angry or whatever. But she said that going to churches has become that for her. It's you go in, and because she's single, I mean, it's like, they make a red eye for her, straight on, and it's coming, and she's just tired of that. So she no longer attends church. And so she follows a lot of my stuff, and she's even purchased my book. And so I'm hoping that this is the first step in her embarking on this journey to begin to question her faith and her religion, and it leads her to wherever it leads her. Many of you see my tag here, pick up my book, From Saved to Sane, My Journey Away from Christianity. It is available on Amazon. It looks like this if you see it. Why Christianity has been detrimental to the African-American community. That's me, Willie O. Cartwright. So pick up the book. Invite your friends to subscribe to this channel, please, please, please. And to pick up the book as well. If you want a signed copy, you can always DM me or send me a message, private message, or you can cash out me $19.99, and I will sign it for you and mail it out to you, mail you a copy of the book. So any of you are interested in that. But yeah, that is pretty much. I just wanted to address that. I just one other thing I wanted to talk about really quick before we end. Um, some of the reasons, I think we touched on some of them, but other reasons why I think people are leaving the church, not just what they're seeing from their parents and grandparents and no results. Not only they're realizing prayer doesn't work, they're also realizing that the things in the Bible are just not true, just not factual. There are no empirical evidence of many of the things in the Bible. And I sit here and I've heard uh, Ray Hagan, I think it's Ray Hagan. I've heard him throw out a challenge where he said to people, if you can prove to me or you can bring me evidence that Jesus was resurrected, right? That he will pay like their living expenses for the rest of their life or the rest of his life or something like that. So and I tell you all the time, I say, I'm telling you, of all the major, there is zero empirical evidence and zero empirical corroborated non-biblical evidence, factual evidence, scientific evidence of any major character or major event in the Bible, right? And I challenge anyone to bring me evidence of that because it doesn't exist. And so you would think 2,000, 3,000 years that as much as archaeologists and scientists and historians have tried to find something to scientifically verify their beliefs, that they would have found something. But major characters, I'm talking about Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jesus, God, or whatever. Joseph, none of those characters. When I say events, I'm talking the flood, the creation story, Exodus. None of that. There was zero evidence, empirical evidence of any of that existing. So I think the biggest reason why a lot of these people, a lot of these kids or young people are leaving religion is because they realize that this stuff is mythology and that it's not real, and that it doesn't serve a purpose. It doesn't serve a practical purpose. It does give people something to kind of to help them get, they believe that it helps them to get over a situation. But if they didn't have religion, it would be something else, whether that would be something, bad like alcohol or smoking, or something good like walking in nature or music or swimming or whatever it is. It would be replaced with something else. But a lot of these people believe that they've made it through or make it through situations because of their belief system. And that's fine. But the people that are leaving, that are moving, that are running away from religion, is because, number one, they realize that it's not true. And when I have a discussion with believers, they want to say it's everything else. Well, you never really was a Christian, or you got church hurt. Somebody hurt you in church. I said none of that is why true non-believers, whether you be agnostic or atheist or whatever, that was once believers become that. Now, the church hurt and some of the other stuff that they mentioned might be what begins their journey. But when we really, really change, the reason why I'm not a believer anymore is because I've discovered that it's not true. And I haven't seen any evidence to show me that it is true. Plain and simple. It has nothing to do with anything else. Anything else. The reason why I am not a believer is because there is zero evidence that of a resurrected Jesus, a Savior Jesus, a God, or any other deity. I have seen no evidence to make me believe that. So if we need evidence for everything else in our life, then why not for what's supposed to be the most important thing in our life? As extraordinary as the claim, the proof has to be extraordinary, right? So we have little proof, let alone extraordinary proof. we don't have because this is an extraordinary claim that people make, that this Jesus God died and resurrected, and he's God and the Trinity and all that, and he's going to save you, he's coming back and all of that. So if that's an extraordinary claim, so we need extraordinary evidence, and we don't have that. So those are just some of the reasons. So just kind of to recap before we end this, my story, I kind of rehashed it a little bit, so you guys know who you're listening to, and who you're dialoguing with, and where I came from and where I am now. We address some of the issues as to why we're leaving the church. A lot of people are starting to leave the church, and I think Christians just don't have a clue as to why they think it's everything else, because they don't want to believe. They can't fathom that somebody would actually be a Christian and no longer be a Christian. But there are millions of people out there who used to be believers who are no longer believers. I mean, there are clergy. I mean, they have an organization called the Clergy Project now, which is specifically for clergy people who are non-believers but are still practicing their craft as a pastor or a preacher, because financially they can't afford to leave, but they're so torn inside, so they needed an outlet. So this guy created, I think it's Dan Barker, who used to be a pastor, who's now running it. He's an atheist now, but he started an organization called the Clergy Project, and it's for, you know, clergy who left the church and they're no longer believers. But a lot of those clergy are still practice. They still are in the church, in the pulpit, preaching every Sunday and not believing a damn word that they're saying. And they're part of this organization, and it's the World Organization. So absolutely. So again, thank you guys. Pick up my book, subscribe to my channel. We're gonna try to do this every week or every other week. It'll probably be about an hour or so. That we like to try to keep it. I would like to expand and broaden it, and have people come in who are maybe believers, and we can have a dialogue and discuss why you're a believer. And we're not gonna beat up on you. We're not gonna do anything like that. We're just gonna kind of challenge you. Bring me the evidence. Let's talk about it. Why you believe, and let's see if it makes sense. If it's something that, you know, and we all want to hear. So we all can learn from one another. I am more interested in the psychology of why we believe, especially as Black people believing in Christianity. I am so interested in the psychology beyond I've been indoctrinated, because that's really, I mean, that's a large part of it. But there are those of us who are intelligent. Some of the most intelligent people I know are believers. And some of the people who I respect more so than any other people on the face of the earth, they are believers. So it's something. And so I want to get into the whole psychology of why this is so, why we are so afraid to pull away from this mythology, this belief system that we've been indoctrinated in. So before I go, let me see if there's any questions we can address before I close it out. But D. Cheney, how you doing? How you doing? Christine, two in the lines. Truth is what our people need most. The truth and nothing but the truth. Absolutely. I'm wondering, and I'm here to give my little piece of it. Peace, family. J.S. Hines Randoms. Thank you. Black Atheist is freedom. They find out the Bible is a comic book in Bible college. There you go. You know what? And I'll say this real quick. I've talked to several people who have gone to seminary school, right? And so I asked them. I said, because I'm talking about a real seminary school, not one that's biased. I'm talking that's straight up secular. I mean, not secular, but teach it from an unbiased standpoint. Just give you the information and let you, interpret it or whatever. And I've said to them, I've asked them, I said, so what happened? And I've gotten two answers. They said that either the information that they got either made them stronger in their faith, and I don't think it was because it confirmed what they believe. I think it was because it shook them up so much until they didn't have anything else to turn to. But then the other group was it made them a non-believer. It challenged them so much until they went into the seminary school hoping and planning on becoming a pastor or a preacher, and they end up leaving as a non-believer. So I've seen both. So absolutely. What else? They don't have to believe necessarily. Does the Pope believe in chastity? Thank you, Taisha. Thank you for everything. We will talk later, Taisha. I had a question about a couple of things, but thank you so much. How do you visit with your sister in talks of religion? No, good question, Taisha. We decided to stay away from that. Well, she did, because I don't care. I'll talk about it anywhere. But I used to come home and I used to get started, and she would be like, her and my niece would be like, oh, here you go again. So we don't really, we kind of joke about it, because here's a funny story. So my niece and everybody outside, it's for like 45 people outside. And we had been out there in this hot sun for like an hour, 2 hours waiting for her to do this gender reveal, right? So we eating and everybody's hot. And so we get ready to eat. And Black people, we got to pray for everything, right? So I'm sitting off to the side. My sister's showing out. She's just showing her ass. I mean, she's showing out, right? But I'm glad to see that that she's come out of her shell, because she spent so many years through, because of personal stuff being kind of enclosed. So now she's coming out of her shell. So I love it. I have no problem with it. I love it. But so they got ready to pray, and she kind of made a little sly comment, and she thought other people heard, people who really know me, they kind of like snicker, but she was like, yeah, I'm gonna let my brother do the prayer. And I kind of ignored it and played it off, but it was like a little, she was trying to make a little shot at me or whatever. But yeah, but we don't talk about it, Taisha. I don't bring it up. Not that I'm afraid to. I just, if it comes up, it comes up. Most of the time it doesn't. I talk about her pastor. I say really bad things about her pastor because he's very questionable to me. And so I said stuff just to anger her because she loves her pastor. So that's kind of how I get back at her. But, it's funny. But yeah, so it went well. It was just fine. Christina, me too. I am still learning a well-developed system of RWS to keep the non-white people worldwide controlled and confused. Yep. Somebody said peace, Taisha, and Taisha said greetings back. So, guys, this is it for me. Again, pick up the book, available on Amazon. Join me, and I will always put out a notice. If you follow me on Facebook or some other social media platforms, you will know about this a couple of days in advance. Please invite your friends, whether they are believers or non-believers. I really want to grow this channel. I think the information is important. I am open to dialogue. I am open to debate. Those of you who are part of organizations, I am available to speak at those organizations for a fee. I am a paid speaker, so I am available to speak at those events for you. So you can contact me if you want. If you're putting together an event, you want me to speak, and we can talk about this. It could be in any kind of format. I can speak. We can have it slipped my mind. I'm getting old, but any format that you want to have, we can do it. So I'm available for that or whatever. So I live here in Decatur, Georgia, which is Atlanta. I'm like a mile from the Atlanta city limits, but we can drive. We're mobile. We can get some places depending on the situation. But yeah, so let's do that. But thank you guys so much for supporting me. Thank you. I love the questions. I love the comments. If you didn't see all of it, you can follow it. You can go to my channel from Save the Sane and catch it from the beginning. But until then, we'll talk to you next time. Thank you. I'm out.